This section is opposite of deception of perception in that the evildoers have also deceived the so-called African Americans into the perception of what constitutes honor, integrity, righteousness, and sin. There is a time and place for everything, and your perception of the times is the most crucial aspect of being accepted or rejected on that great and terrible day. What I'm basically trying to say is, do not reject those who may have done something undesirable by society standards as someone not to be respected in the future. Everyone thinks they know the story of Joseph, King David, and Moses, and their dealings with misfortune and sin, but I ask you, do you really know what these brothers was ordered to do? Yah will use whoever and whatever means to accomplish his ultimate goal. Yes, Yah will orchestrate lies and falsehoods if that is what is required to accomplish his goal. Blasphemy. He speaks blasphemy. We're going to make a rock pile out of you yet, scribe. I know you guys might be saying, no, I'm not a blasphemer. Isaiah 19 and 14. Yah has mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggers in his vomit. 1 Kings 22, 19 through 23. And he said, Hear thou therefore the word of Yah. I saw Yah sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing about him on his right hand and on his left. And Yah said, Who shall persuade Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and the other said on that manner. And there came forth a spirit, and stood before Yah, and said, I will persuade him. And Yah said to him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, Yah has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and Yah has spoken evil concerning thee. Example, I told you, but that's not exactly what I was talking about. Let me explain. Has anyone other than myself ever wondered why and how could the Egyptians disregard the legacy of Joseph, who saved Egypt from the great famine and built major cities and monuments all throughout Egypt? Or why the Egyptians were so mad at the Hebrew Israelites? And here's another one, an even better question. Why were the Israelites more mightier than the Egyptians? Which we all know spurred the new king's daily decrees. Secular history and the African American history book both attest to a totally different story than the one told every Sunday go to meeting. It seems the historians have finally concluded Joseph did not serve under an aboriginal Egyptian pharaoh at all, according to World Book Encyclopedia under Hyksos. Quote, the Hyksos were invaders from Palestine who settled in ancient Egypt in 1700 BC. They gradually seized control of Egypt from the pharaohs. The Hyksos dominated Egypt through the 1600 BCs and until their defeat by the Egyptians in 1570 BC. They introduced the horse-drawn chariot, new weapons, and new types of fortifications in Egypt. These changes later helped Egypt to build a vast empire. The Hyksos are sometimes called shepherd kings, but the Egyptian word Hyksos means chieftain or foreign countries. Example, the Hyksos were also Semitic, so I can definitely see how they would favor another Semitic person, Joseph and the Israelites, over a conquered aboriginal Egyptian African. This brings us to the meat of the story and the lesson. Joseph, though it looks as though he was a friend to the Egyptian people by saving them from starvation, he actually despoiled them totally, made them sharecroppers/serfs, and transferred the wealth to his incoming kindred through the guise of serving a foreign pharaoh. If you read the book of Genesis, chapter 47, again with a different perception, I am pretty sure all of the above statements will start to make sense. This will be a little long, but necessary to get the full context of the story. Genesis 47, 11 through 27. Quote, "And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the lands of Ramses, as Pharaoh has commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his people, all his father's household, with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, for the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, 'Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth.' And Joseph said, 'Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail.' And they brought their cattle into Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with the bread for all their cattle for that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, we will not hide it from you, my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also haveth our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thy eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevaileth over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt until that day, that Pharaoh should have of the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. Whew. Example. Did you catch it? The more I read this story, the more I see the telltale signs this Pharaoh was not an aboriginal Egyptian. If he was an Egyptian, he sucked as a ruler. Think about it. If he was an aboriginal Egyptian, he would have already had the allegiance of the people and would not have taken their belongings like that. Another thing, research attests to the temple priests had just as much, if not more power, money, land, and resources than the Pharaoh. This is another clear indicator these were foreign king pharaohs worshiping their religious way of life. Did you notice the Israelites were not affected in the same manner of the despoiled Egyptians? The Israelites flourished while the Aboriginals became migrant workers and sharecroppers. Now can you see why the new Aboriginal Egyptian king did not hold Joseph and his people in esteem? The moral of what I am trying to convey is, do not be deceived into believing just because a person has done what society might think is right or wrong, it might not be wrong at all. I'm going to write a second part about this, dealing with the story of Moses. I know what we see on the Ten Commandments, but do you really know what happened? The negotiations and what really went down, people? Well, look for the next video, and as always, thank you for listening.